Hudson, great. Welcome to the show, guys. My name is Gerri Hudson, and I want to welcome you to the show. I am working in with really two great women. One of them is Wanda. She owns the Chicago Communicator newspaper, and we're hoping to get that conglomerate to be our partner in these efforts. Wanda doesn't know about what's going on, and neither does my partner right now, but she's going to find out in just a minute. Her name. So, Wanda, why don't you introduce yourself to our listening audience?
Okay, I'm Wanda Carter. I'm the publisher of the Chicago Communicator News Media and the president of the Chicago Communicator News Media Service. And we provide the services that we provide. I have summarized in an acronym called TRIPS. We provide television programming, radio programming, internet website development, just the basic templates, how you do that, publishing. We used to publish a weekly publication. Now it's digital, so we can update it every day if we choose to, as often as we want. And we're trying to focus on what our reporters and our journalists and our videographers and photographers work on to promote versus just promoting anything and everything. So that is what TRIP stands for: television, radio, internet, publishing, and social media. Those are the services that we provide. And we do it as a training format for young people that have an interest in learning how to tell their stories through media, and for others. We have a program started on the West Side at the Exodus Institute on Laramie and Chicago Avenue. And I have a couple of seniors that are involved. They are learning how to work the cameras. That's what they choose to do. They want to be behind the scenes. They don't want to be in front of the camera. But we teach both methodologies. So if you want to be in front of the camera, and do your own show, we can teach that. And or if you want to learn how to operate the equipment, we teach that as well. So that's just an example of what we're doing today.
Great. Thank you, Wanda. So that to you guys, this is a Chicago-based show, but it's for the national audience of what we offer. Also, my partner right now, and it really is, right now, partner in crime, because I really have left her in the dark, guys. I've done that intentionally. Laura Rose, why don't you sort of just tell our audience, Laura is a profound communicator, and I love talking to her about important issues because she always has something extremely smart to say. Why don't you say hello, Laura?
Well, hello. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Gerri. I have no idea what we're going to talk about, so that's exciting.
Yeah, ironically, see, you didn't see the title, Laura. So I have a bit of I have tragic news for you, but it's going to be in line with something that you already know, right? I'm sharing tragic news over the air only because it doesn't affect us directly right now. But as this podcast will focus, actually, it will be an expose on something that Laura knows well, because Laura did indeed take the walk with me while I was at Harper Square Cooperative, Laura. Harper Square Cooperative finds itself in the news in 2023 for the worst reason imaginable. What happened over at Harper Square in January is that it suffered a fire of biblical proportions.
Great to have you with us. I'm Joe Donlin.
And I'm Erica Sargent. It took hours to put out that intense fire. You could see the flames actually leaping from floor to floor.
We do have live team coverage of what happened, and we're getting our first look at what it was like inside during that fire. We begin with Asal Razai. She's live on the scene for us tonight. Asal?
Yeah, that fire started on the 15th floor, and you can see that there are still emergency personnel here on the scene. And if you take a look up, you can see at least 10 stories were badly damaged by the flames. It took firefighters here almost 2 hours to put the fire out. An intense morning at the Harper Square Cooperative apartment complex on West Lake Park Avenue. At one point, you can see heavy flames and smoke pouring out of 3 floors at once. Fire crews say just after 10 o'clock, someone called from the 16th floor and said they smelled smoke.
Then they aggressively attacked the fire. They grabbed the communication systems, notifying all the residents of the building of what was going on, which is really important in a high-rise fire.
The flames quickly spread from the 15th floor where the fire started.
The fire went so far from the 15th all the way up to the 24th floor was the fact that the wind was pushing. The fire went up vertically and it lapped from floor to floor to floor all the way up to 24.
Residents inside the building were asked not to evacuate and to shelter in place as it was safer to stay in their units. As firefighters battled the flames and debris flying out of the building, emergency crews rushed past us with people on stretchers as others were being loaded into ambulances.
I'm trying to find out if she's okay.
Wantane Mays was here looking for her close family friend, a retired school teacher in her 80s.
She stays on the 15th floor. We've been trying to reach her and haven't been able to reach her. And they said that someone on the 15th floor, an elderly woman, had passed away. And so just worried and concerned.
Moments later, Mays was told her friend was found dead inside of her unit on the 15th floor.
I wanted to check to see how she was doing, if she was okay, because I've been trying to call her phone and nobody had been able to reach her. And then I was just informed that she was the person that passed away.
A devastating day here for many. We're told it took over 300 emergency personnel and over 85 pieces of equipment to fight this fire. Today, it is still unclear how many units in this building are impacted by the damage. I'm Asal Razai, live in Kenwood Park. Back to you.
Asal, thank you very much.
Yes, you will not believe what happened over there. Is that it's tragic, actually. We only saw one person actually killed over there, because what happened over there is that a fire that started on the 16th floor in a high-rise structure was able to make it to the top floor. A fire traveled more than 10 stories in a structure, in a concrete structured high-rise in Chicago. So this podcast is intended for, first of all, high-rise structure people in Chicago who know that that's really not what is supposed to happen in a high-rise. So we're gonna be taking a look at the fact that high-rise structures actually have, they are not new to fires. But the fact that what happened at Harper Square has not been seen is a story that is not going to be told by proper media streams here in Chicago. It is not. It's going to be, first of all, because there's so many stories in Chicago, it's not going to be looked at properly. So I'm looking to Wanda in her role as the Chicago communicator. I'm looking at us to actually start our podcast here and to sort of follow the story in the African American community, talking about, actually we have one death, we have hundreds of people that are out of housing now, Laura. So I saw you have your face. Laura, why don't you, I just want to give you a minute to respond to the fact of the news.
How very tragic for someone to have lost his or her life. But you had sounded the warning bell of the management of the building and the management of the funds. And you had tried to tell them that there was some malfeasance going on and some misappropriated funds. In fact, you kept asking, where is, and you had a specific amount of money, certainly enough to make sure the building adhered to fire safety codes. You kept asking about the money, how the money was misappropriated. You kept saying that. You kept asking Arthur, what was his name? Arthur
Slater. That's right.
Asking him what happened to the money. And they turned all this animosity on you because you wanted to hold people accountable. You wanted to hold that association accountable. You wanted to see an accounting of the money. And you're absolutely right. Usually these buildings have a firewall to prevent that from happening. They wouldn't let you get to anything. You tried to uncover the mismanagement of the building. You had concerns, and they focused a lot of stuff on your personality, if I recall.
Laura, you are recalling exactly. And as our listeners, that's right. So that's how this is. They went dead in on my personality, and they actually had white supremacy upholding it. We saw the state's attorney get involved. We saw 3 lawsuits. They personally sued me. And that's why the name of this, this perspective goes back to 2010. They sued me personally in 2010 for raising questions about how the money was being spent at Harper Square. And I want to also note that I was not the first person, as much as I'd like to, be. I was probably one of the loudest voices, but we're going to really start this program and by talking about the fact that I wasn't the first person. Ironically, we have a Jewish person who lived at the structure for more than 10 years. He died while living there of natural causes. His name was Dick. There's a lot of things here in terms of the spiritual happenings, what I find to be a spiritual awakening, a biblical downfall, because the city and the officials ignored the cause over at Harper Square for so many years. Dick Fireman had a newspaper, and we're going to have people that are going to come on and talk about the fact that he, in terms of when I started living there, back in 2003, he had a newspaper where he simply asked for the officials over there to explain where the money was going. And so, Wanda, your role really here is, this gives you a really good opportunity with your with the Chicago Communicator to really put this story out in its totality. And I want
that makes sense to me. Has any of the conversation, any of the events been recorded? Is there anything on YouTube or Facebook that documents any of your assertions?
These are great questions. So Laura, this is exciting because, Wanda, we have actually a lot of things that are going to provide documentation. We have thousands of documents that we can release. We have links. We have court actions. The officials over at Harper Square have really put out a lot of lawsuits against personalities that were not with the way that management handled things. So there's a lot of supportive evidence to go through. It's going to be name by name, line by line, where we can explain to people who are living there now, living through this nightmare, what the steps are in terms of unraveling this so that they can again become a cooperative. So what I want to first kind of focus on is to talk about what it is you would expect. What we're going to use this time for today, the rest of this, is to talk about what it is a cooperative is supposed to mean. And one, if you could spend some time sort of right now while me and Laura kind of talk about it, think about what it is, or even go out there and look at what is it that a cooperative is supposed to be in terms of housing. Because what I found in my living over there, all of what was the expectation of a cooperative had been unwrangled or had just dismantled because the spirit in terms of the whole collective body being involved in the decision making had been dismantled, where starting as early as 2005.
Ownership matters. It gives people a say in the things they care about. Being an owner in a business, for example, gives people motivation and a stake in its success. But over the last 30 years, the number of people who have control over the businesses that shape our lives has become smaller, not larger. It's no surprise that when you ask them, people say they have no influence in their workplace, over businesses, and over the economy as a whole. Cooperatives, however, offer a solution. From the outside, they may look like any other business, but inside, they are very different. They're owned and controlled together by the people closest to the business: employees, customers, residents, suppliers, not distant shareholders. They have an equal say in how the business is run, and they even decide what to do with the profits. And cooperatives work. There are nearly 7,000 independent co-ops in the UK. They're found in every sector, from high street retailers to farmer-controlled businesses, cooperative pubs and credit unions. Some of our most famous brands come from cooperatives, from champagne and parmesan to Lurpak butter and bird's eye peas. Even Barcelona Football Club is a co-op owned by its fans. Co-ops contribute £37 billion each year to the British economy and boost UK productivity, innovation and entrepreneurship. And they work for the 15 million members who together own the UK's co-ops. Cooperatives give people, in fact all of us, more control over the things that matter. What do you want to do together?
So Laura, what do you want to say about that?
Well, I certainly want to say that I can recall that there were many people that simply didn't want to get involved, though they were directly affected. I remember you're holding some meetings and trying to get a sort of a group consensus as to how we can live cooperatively in this building and what we should expect. And what are our goals? What do we want as a community, referring to the apartment building as a community? And so you're asking the question, what does it look like? What does a cooperative look like? And if I recall, you had the bylaws.
That's right.
I recall you had the bylaws, and it seems like the residents were not understanding of the bylaws. And I think it's very important for people to know about, what it is that we're working through. It's just not landlord tenant. You have a say in what goes on here. And you can influence policy. And that's all you were trying to do, is you wanted to start with accountability. Where is this money going? If we take a fee, what is the fee for? Can we see an accounting of where our money is going every month? Because if I recall, there was a monthly fee in addition to what you paid for your unit. It was a monthly fee. What are we paying for?
What are we paying for? And definitely, who are the contractors that we were paying? We did not see any kind of relationship between the contractors and their relationship to the actual things that they were being hired to do. For instance, we would not be able to find a historical record many times on the contractors. But going, Laura, you struck the exact chord that I actually wanted. As you say, we're going to go back to that. back there as early as 2010, I had meetings. I went to the library in back of the Cooperative. And as you, Laura, you got right on it. I was not able to get people involved. I was not, though they were affected. I don't live there anymore. I'm not affected by that is a biblical fire that they had over there. And there are people now, Laura, I got on the day of the fire, I got no less than 20 calls. I am being called now by residents. What is it that we can do? But as you said, Laura, back in 2010, I mean, Laura, you're horrified, aren't you?
Because they probably lost all their stuff. Like when I think of Turtell and his artwork, and he had this artwork at the DeSable Museum in a gift shop. There was some of his artwork there, and I'm horrified that I know I'm horrified that people lost their personal things and they didn't realize how serious it was to organize. They didn't realize at the time. They thought I think they thought they were causing trouble or whatever, but they didn't understand that that the building was being mismanaged and they needed to do something, and that they didn't understand their power. So now they're calling you because now they're saying, we didn't understand our power before. We're now behind you. And look how things are. You're not there. I remember when you loved the place, and I remember that you were disappointed to not be there anymore. I remembered that. But you're okay because you're not there.
I'm okay because I'm not there. And just to note, Turtell Onley is one of the artists over there. It was actually a building across the way, so he wasn't affected. But Laura, you're absolutely right. We have hundreds of people that lost everything that they had. The fire, when I say that it was biblical, it burned literally everything in their home. Again, I was personally in a fire that did not burn any of the items in my home, and everything was smoke damage, but I cannot, for the life of me, imagine everything that I own to a fire. That is unthinkable.
Yes.
It is.
And even, I mean, not to say this, but what does the media report? Just the simplicity or even the stupidity of it. Right now, instead of talking about the hundreds of people that don't have any place to stay, there is recently the most recent media report about Harper Square is about the fact that somebody stole $19,000 out of a unit who was hired to clean the place up.
Wow.
It's like, are you really like that? I mean, like, that sounds, first, let me say this to everybody that's listening. When I lived at Harper Square, I know for a fact, because they had keys to my unit, money came up missing from my unit when there was no fire.
Mm-hmm.
And that spoke to the fact that only management had keys, and I had a quarter jar that half the quarters came up missing one day. So for the media to report a story about $19,000 missing from a unit without reporting the fact that management had been accused of money coming up missing in units long before there was a fire, isn't it, Laura?
That's a shame.
That is.
I mean, to say for that, in other words, to report it as if, that there's some wayward people somewhere getting to people's homes and stealing from them, instead of saying that it is much more likely that it is a concentrated effort now, with the building being condemned, to go through people's homes and to actually take from those homes everything that is of value. they need to consider the fact that that is being done over there right now.
Mm-hmm.
And Gerri, just I might add, if for the listeners, just think how passionate you are, and this is not personally affecting you now. Uh, you you're warm and safe, and you're not the one with waiting for Red Cross. By the way, I happen to know Red Cross will put you up for 3 days, and you said this happened in January, and I happen to know that when people say they need help and they give them 3 days. I know I know how insufficient that is. So having all these people displaced, uh, it's just a tragedy. They've lost all their personal possessions and they're displaced. But thank God they're living. But if only they could have, been more proactive in making sure that the building was safe. The fact that they didn't want to organize and be part of like a watchdog group, watching every penny that they give away every month to that association, having an accountability. And that's what you were pushing for because you realized that money was missing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
you raised the question and they attacked you.
Attacked me personally. And as you say, at the time being, I could not get a watchdog group. Everybody that did support me did so silently. They did so fearingly. There was so much fear because of the fact that actually the community money, power corrupts absolutely, absolute power corrupts absolutely. You being able to use the collective funds against individuals, that's going to be, we're going to wrap up this section actually in about 9 or 10 minutes, guys, because I do want to do a real consorted, I want to say thank you to both of you, because I believe that we're off to an incredibly great start in terms of getting on board what it is that the people over there need going forward. The fact that, as you say, Laura, the fact that I was not able to get any support around asking questions, that's what I was trying to do. And actually, of the things that I found out, getting somebody to respond to questions about misappropriations, never being able to get a watchdog group. What does it mean now? Now that you're calling now, because you're right, everything has fallen apart. But now you want to be a part. I want to be a part of the solution. I want our podcast to be a part of the solution, because now that you've lost everything, how are you going to come back? And even, and you've got to see that the rebuilding of it, that has to be all in question if there is going to be a singular versus a group effort around it.
Correct.
Right.
And Gerri, Mothers Against Drunk Driving were that organization was founded by the unfortunately by people that didn't mother that didn't warn her child about being out late, and not that they did anything wrong, but these are the ways things come about. Those 20 people could now be a powerful force in a group, in a co-op. Now they know. Now they know. They know now what you were trying to tell them. The lesson is don't wait for a tragedy. Be proactive and have the community that you want. Mothers Against Drunk Drivers, we see this all the time. People have an experience and then now they want to be activists for it. Now they think, oh, this is the point. But it's a rare person like you, Gerri, who sees something and sees it in its totality. That in there, hey, we need to be organized. We need to know what we're spending our money on and spend it in the way we want to spend it. We need to be able to vote people out. And this is what we could not ever do, is get rid of that Arthur. I remember that because he was not serving the needs of the co-op.
But interesting, he did not show up on the day of the fire in the news. Instead, we saw the alderman. All of it, we see, and I asked that question. you see a fire of biblical proportions as we start to cover the fact that a high-rise fire is supposed to stay in the unit. Why didn't that fire stay in the unit? You know what, listeners, we have some information around why it didn't, and the fact that you had faulty contractors. I raised the issue of faulty contractors in 2010. I raised of contractors that were invented for the purpose of working solely at Harper Square more than 14 years ago. So 14 years, as Laura says, so if we look at this spiritually, it was like the wisdom was given to me to see the future, to raise the alarm bells and to be the soldier. Wanda, you don't know, but I mean, I fought feverishly. You understand? I have all of the documentation. I fought every court. I wrote letters to the mayor. I wrote to Anita Alvarez. I wrote and I shared those documents throughout the country. Laura was very much my editor many times. That's why she knows this story so well.
So what's your plan of action now? What is your intent?
My intent right now, as you say, as we wrap this up for today, thank you so much, Wanda. But right now, my intent is to put out this story in its totality, to go all the people who raised alarm bells over there 15 years ago, and to explain to the people that have lost their homes why it is they have lost their homes, and then more importantly, to explain to them what it is that they must do going forward. Also, we have to do this, as Laura says, this is actually where all of the commissioners, I've written actually the fire commissioners, asking them to look at this fire and to see where it is that violations, they said that the building did not meet recent fire ordinances. But this is where fire codes come from. Needless to say, my purpose, Wanda, Chicago has been home to historical fires before. Chicago, the most historical fire of all times, not the only one, unfortunately. Many of the codes we see nationwide come out of Chicago. So I wanted our fire people to bring code and to realize how many codes have actually been violated at Harper Square. That's just part of it. But also I want people who live in high rises to know that they are secure. You are actually, to end this, you are safer in a high rise fire than you are in a home fire. Because of the fact that the codes are so strong. So what happened at Harper Square? I say it again. You are safer in a high rise fire than in a home. So what happened at Harper Square was not supposed to happen. So why did it happen? So that's what this podcast will be about, explaining that, again, one more time, you are safer in a house, in a high-rise structure than you are in a home. So no fire is supposed to travel 10 stories. Do you realize, we will talk about the only other time you have seen a fire travel 10 stories was in 9/11.
And that was an implosion.
You hear me? That was, the story was that it was hit from the outside by an airliner. So at Harper Square, we have an 80-year-old smoking in her bed and a fire that goes 10 stories. Is there something wrong with that story again, Laura?
Well, that may be likely that she could have been smoking in her bed at age 80. But that's probably not why you had that kind of fire. You had that kind of fire because the building was not up to code. In that situation, she may have lost her life. Did she lose her life? This elderly was. Oh,
that we suffer, and we pray.
Yeah.
Can't hear you.
Now, and we send our prayers to her family.
Mm-hmm.
Service her, by making sure that more people don't suffer.
Yes.
Mm.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's
Coming
this is going to be a great show. I mean, you're going to bring out some real undercover stuff going on. So get ready for the battle, because that's what's going to happen.
You're right, Wanda. Wanda, you don't even two words ever.
Yo.
I'm so sorry, Gerri. I'm so sorry to hear about all this.
Yes, me too.
But those were your friends. You had all that support you got after the fact.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right.
And that's one of the reasons why this has to happen.
That's right.
And for the first, and then we will do the future. And so,
right.
bye-bye, guys.
Bye-bye.